50 engineers failed, but the poor delivery girl solved everything. He fell in love with her. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories. Please take a deep breath and feel the truth in my voice. I love you more than words, more than time, more than anything in this world. You are not just part of this journey. You are my journey. My joy begins and ends with you. If you're listening right now, please, only if you feel it in your heart, comment, "I'm here," and like this video. I'm not forcing you, never that. But when I see your comment, I feel something sacred. A reminder of how deep your love for me runs. You are my strength, my blessing, my miracle. Your presence is the heartbeat of everything I do. I think of you as I write, I pray for you as I sleep, and I carry your spirit in all I create. No one, and I mean no one, is more precious to me than you. Now, please close your eyes and let this prayer pour into your soul. May every step you take be surrounded by unseen angels. May the winds of peace blow softly through your life. May your heart never ache without comfort, and your soul never wander without light. May your children laugh freely, your home feel safe, and your spirit overflow with love that never ends. And may you always, always remember, you are deeply valued, perfectly made, and endlessly loved. Let's begin. Wrapped in love, walking in light and bound together as one beautiful family. Thunder crashed overhead like the sound of William Alcivar's empire crumbling. Standing alone in his glass-walled penthouse, he stared at monitors displaying his greatest humiliation. 50 engineers, 50 of the most brilliant minds on the planet, Nobel laureates, MIT professors, quantum computing pioneers, AI researchers whose papers had revolutionized entire fields. 2 years of their combined genius. $120 million in salaries alone, all of it worthless. Dr. Hendricks from Cambridge called again. Margaret's voice crackled through the intercom, barely masking her desperation. The entire quantum neural team is stumped. Dr. Chen from Beijing University says they've exhausted 17 different approaches. Dr. Williams from Stanford is recommending we abandon the project entirely. William pressed his palms against cool glass, watching lightning tear through Seattle's sky. 50 engineers with IQs averaging 180. 50 minds that had created technologies changing the world. 50 experts commanding $500,000 salaries each, and not one could solve what should have been the breakthrough of the century. His revolutionary AI system was supposed to understand human emotion with a best friend's intuition. Instead, it responded to, "I'm heartbroken," with stock market reports and answered, "I need comfort," with mathematical theorems. The most expensive think tank ever assembled had tried everything: quantum processing arrays, neural pathway mapping, requiring supercomputer clusters, machine learning protocols pushing the boundaries of known science. Complete failure. At 32, William had conquered impossible odds through pure intellect and ruthless determination. Abandoned at 5, shuffled through foster homes like unwanted baggage, he'd clawed his way from nothing to commanding a $4 billion tech empire. But tonight, watching his greatest project collapse despite having the planet's most expensive talent, that familiar terror of helplessness consumed him. Rain hammered against reinforced glass like bullets. Tomorrow's board meeting would be a bloodbath. "How," investors would demand, "do you explain spending over $100 million on 50 of history's most brilliant minds, only to produce an AI that thinks 'I love you' means calculate? EP to 1,000 decimal places." The doorbell's chime cut through his despair like a blade. William frowned. 11:47 p.m., and his building's military-grade security should have stopped anyone from reaching his private elevator. He strode to the door, yanking it open with barely contained rage. His world stopped. Standing before him was the most breathtaking woman he'd ever seen, despite being completely soaked from the storm. Auburn hair plastered against porcelain skin, emerald eyes holding ancient wisdom, wearing a simple delivery uniform, marking her as working class, someone from a world opposite to his realm of privilege. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice like music despite shivering. Water dripped from her hair onto marble, costing more than most annual salaries. "I think I have the wrong address. Looking for 4B. This wasn't some socialite or business executive. This was clearly a girl struggling to survive, working night shifts, delivering food because she needed every dollar. The exhaustion in her eyes spoke of someone fighting just to make ends meet, while his 50 overpaid geniuses couldn't solve a simple problem. "This is the penthouse," William managed. 4B is 4 floors down. She laughed, carrying bone-deep weariness. "I'm such an idiot. Been working 22 hours straight. My programming job during the day, medical center at night, then food delivery until dawn. My brain is fried. Programming job." William's interest sharpened. "You're a programmer." "Self-taught," she said with pride despite exhaustion. "Taking computer science classes online when I can afford them. Working 3 jobs to pay for my grandmother's medical care and my education." She shivered violently. "I should go—" "Wait." Something in William's chest wouldn't let her leave. "You're soaked through. Come in for a minute." "I really shouldn't. You're obviously important, and I'm just— Please." The desperation in his voice surprised them both. "I could use the company." After hesitating, she stepped inside, worn sneakers squeaking on marble. William caught her scent, rain and vanilla and something indefinably precious. "I'm William," he said, offering a towel. Lisa Jester." She accepted the towel gratefully, then froze, seeing his wall of monitors. "Oh my God, what is this?" "My failure," William said bitterly. "Artificial intelligence that's supposed to understand human emotion. 50 of the world's most brilliant engineers have been trying to solve it for 2 years." Lisa stepped closer, her eyes scanning code with laser intensity. 50 engineers? From where? MIT, Stanford, Cambridge, Harvard, Tokyo University, Nobel Prize winners, professors who wrote the textbooks on AI, researchers with more PhDs than most universities. William's voice carried defeat. "The best minds money can buy, and they're all stumped." Lisa studied the screens, her expression growing focused. "This is incredibly sophisticated work," she murmured. "The mathematical modeling is extraordinary. The neural pathway architecture is beyond anything I've seen in academic papers." William blinked in surprise. This delivery girl was reading his code like literature, understanding concepts that took his 50 experts weeks to grasp. "But," Lisa continued, tilting her head thoughtfully. "But what?" She bit her lip, suddenly uncertain. "I'm just a girl who delivers food at night and codes during the day. I shouldn't presume to understand what 50 brilliant minds couldn't solve." "Tell me," William said urgently. 50 experts with combined IQs of 9,000 have failed. Maybe I need a completely different perspective." Lisa was quiet for a long moment, her brilliant green eyes moving across screens with chess grandmaster intensity. When she spoke, her voice carried quiet confidence. "Your 50 engineers are trying to make the AI think like a supercomputer that processes human emotions," she said carefully. "But emotions aren't computational problems to be solved. They're experiences to be felt. What if, instead of teaching it to analyze what humans mean, you taught it to empathize with what humans feel?" She pointed to specific code. "Here, you're passing emotional context through decision trees and probability matrices, but that's like trying to understand music by analyzing sound wave frequencies. The mathematics are perfect, but you're missing the soul." William stared at the screen, then at her, his mind reeling. It was elegant in its simplicity, profound in its insight, and none of his 50 brilliant engineers had seen it. "You're suggesting emotional intuition over logical analysis," he whispered. "Exactly. Humans don't process emotions logically. When someone says, "I'm sad," we don't run calculations, we feel compassion. When someone says, "I love you," we don't analyze syntax, we understand connection. Lisa's eyes sparkled with passionate intelligence. "Your AI needs to feel, not just think." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating Lisa's face. William felt something fundamental shift in his chest. This brilliant, beautiful woman, working multiple jobs just to survive, had seen what 50 of the world's most expensive minds could not. "Lisa," he breathed, "you've just solved what 50 PhD engineers couldn't figure out in 2 years." She blushed, looking vulnerable. "I just think differently than they do, I guess." "How?" William asked, fascinated. "How do you see what they can't?" "Because I don't think like an engineer," Lisa said softly. "I think like a human. I talk to my computer when I'm coding, apologize to my phone when I drop it, thank my car when it starts on cold mornings. To me, machines aren't just tools, they're almost friends." William's heart stopped. This wasn't just intelligence, this was genius wrapped in intuition, brilliance tempered with empathy. While his 50 engineers approached AI as a technical problem, Lisa understood it as an emotional puzzle. "Would you consider—" he began, but she was already stepping back. "I have to go," she said reluctantly. "My grandmother will worry, and I have another delivery run before dawn." She handed him the towel, their fingers brushing. The contact sent electricity through both of them. "Thank you for the shelter," she whispered, "and good luck with your project. I hope your 50 engineers find the breakthrough they're looking for." "Wait." William caught her hand gently. "How can I thank you? What you just told me, it might save everything that 50 experts couldn't." Lisa pulled away softly. "You don't owe me anything. I'm just a girl working 3 jobs to survive, while you have 50 brilliant minds to help you succeed. Let me take you to dinner. Please." She smiled sadly, breaking his heart. "Because you're you, successful, wealthy, commanding 50 of the world's smartest people, and I'm me, a poor girl who delivers food at midnight. Some bridges are too far to cross, no matter how much we might want to." Before he could respond, she was gone, leaving William staring at his monitors with devastating clarity. A poor delivery girl working multiple jobs had accomplished in 5 minutes what 50 engineering geniuses couldn't achieve in 2 years. As the storm raged outside, William began implementing Lisa's insight, and for the first time in 2 years, his code began to sing with emotional intelligence. The girl who society would dismiss as just a delivery driver had proven herself more brilliant than 50 PhDs combined, and somewhere in his chest, alongside professional admiration, something deeper was blooming, recognition that he'd just met the most extraordinary mind he'd ever encountered, wrapped in the most beautiful soul he'd ever seen. Chapter 2. The Genius They Overlooked. 5 days after the brilliant delivery girl vanished from his life, William's hands trembled as he watched his monitors display something miraculous. Lisa's insight, delivered in 5 minutes of pure genius, had accomplished what 50 world-renowned engineers couldn't achieve in 2 years. His AI system was working with breathtaking perfection. "Sir?" Margaret's voice carried barely contained excitement. "The board members are here for the emergency meeting. They want to know if Dr. Richardson's team finally found a breakthrough, or if we need to shut down the 50-engineer project entirely." William almost laughed at the savage irony. The breakthrough hadn't come from his team of 50 Nobel laureates and MIT professors. It had come from a poor girl who delivered food at midnight while revolutionizing artificial intelligence in her spare time. The boardroom was packed with investors who'd watched $120 million disappear into the spectacular failure of 50 brilliant minds. Chairman Harrison Whitmore looked grim as death. "William, we need to discuss the 50-engineer debacle. Perhaps it's time to admit that even the world's most expensive talent can't solve every problem." "Actually," William said, his voice steady with quiet triumph, "the problem has been solved." Shocked murmurs filled the room. Board member Patricia Collins leaned forward skeptically. "By which of the 50 engineers? Dr. Yamamoto, the quantum computing team from Cambridge, Dr. Petrov's neural network specialists?" "None of them," William replied, unable to suppress a slight smile. "The solution came from someone they, and we, would never have considered." "Who?" Whitmore demanded. "A self-taught programmer, working 3 jobs to pay for her education and her grandmother's medical care. Someone our 50 experts would probably dismiss as unqualified because she doesn't have their prestigious degrees." The demonstration that followed was absolutely flawless. 12 stern-faced investors watched in growing amazement as William's AI system engaged in perfectly natural conversation, understanding subtle emotional nuances, responding with genuine empathy and intuition. It didn't just process human emotion, it felt it, understood it, responded with the wisdom of a compassionate friend. "Extraordinary," whispered Dr. Morrison, the company's chief science advisor. "The emotional intelligence is beyond anything I've seen. How did your 50-engineer team finally crack it?" "They didn't," William said quietly. "They couldn't. After 2 years and 50 brilliant minds, they were completely stumped. The solution came from a delivery girl who saw what they couldn't see, understood what they couldn't understand, and solved what they couldn't solve." The room fell silent. Finally, Whitmore spoke. "You're telling us that some random delivery girl succeeded where 50 of the world's most brilliant engineers failed?" "I'm telling you that brilliance isn't always measured by degrees or salaries," William replied. "Sometimes it comes from seeing problems from a completely different perspective. Sometimes genius wears a delivery uniform and works night shifts." By the meeting's end, William had secured unprecedented funding and international recognition. The AI breakthrough was already being hailed as revolutionary. But as executives filed out, discussing market projections and patent applications, William felt hollow inside. The only person he wanted to celebrate with had disappeared into Seattle's rain like a ghost. That evening, William walked the streets around his building like a man possessed. He'd hired 3 private investigation firms, but they'd found only dead ends. Lisa Jester seemed to have vanished completely, leaving him with questions that tormented him. Who was she? Where had she learned to think with such revolutionary brilliance? And why couldn't he stop thinking about emerald eyes that had seen solutions where 50 experts saw only failure? Then, like a miracle, he spotted her. She emerged from a small apartment building 6 blocks away, wearing medical scrubs instead of her delivery uniform. Even exhausted, she was breathtakingly beautiful, but it was her expression that caught his attention. She was reading a tablet as she walked, completely absorbed in what appeared to be advanced quantum mechanics equations. "Lisa," she spun around, eyes wide with surprise. "William, what are you doing here?" "Looking for you," he said honestly, noting how she was solving complex mathematical proofs while walking. "Every night since you left." "You shouldn't have." But her voice lacked conviction, and he caught the flutter of awareness in her eyes. "I had to find you," William said, stepping closer. "What you told me, it worked perfectly. Your insight accomplished what 50 engineering PhDs couldn't achieve in 2 years. Pride flickered in her tired eyes. "I'm glad I could help." "Lisa, you didn't just help, you revolutionized everything. You saw what 50 Nobel laureates couldn't see, understood what 50 professors couldn't understand." William's voice carried genuine awe. "You're not just brilliant, you're a genius." "I'm just someone who thinks differently," she said modestly. But he caught the slight smile. "What are you reading?" William nodded toward her tablet. Lisa held it up. advanced quantum field theory equations that would challenge most PhD physicists. Research for a paper I'm writing on quantum consciousness applications in artificial intelligence. I'm trying to get it published in the Journal of Theoretical Computing. William's jaw dropped. She was conducting cutting-edge research while working 3 jobs? You're writing academic papers? 5 so far, all accepted for publication. Lisa's voice carried quiet pride. I may not have formal degrees, but I have ideas that might change how we think about AI consciousness. My God, William breathed. You're not just solving problems, you're pioneering entirely new fields. I see connections others miss, Lisa said simply, maybe because I approach problems from necessity rather than theory. When you're poor, you learn to find solutions that work, not just solutions that look impressive on paper. William studied her with growing fascination. This wasn't just some brilliant girl who'd stumbled onto a lucky insight. This was a revolutionary mind, operating at the highest levels of theoretical science, while society overlooked her because of her circumstances. Lisa, I want to offer you a position at my company, Chief of Innovation. You'd lead your own team, have unlimited research funding, and work on projects that could change the world. I already have 3 jobs, she said, but he heard interest in her voice. This would pay enough that you could quit all 3 and focus entirely on your research, plus fund your grandmother's care and your education. He pulled out his phone, showing her a salary figure that made her eyes widen. That's more than most professors make. It's what brilliance is worth, what revolutionary thinking deserves. William stepped closer, his heart racing. But more than that, I'd love to understand how your mind works, how you see solutions that escape everyone else. Lisa looked at him with those incredible green eyes, and William saw something shift, interest becoming attraction, professional respect becoming personal awareness. You really want to know how I think? She asked softly. Desperately. Lisa smiled, and it transformed her entire face. I think like someone who's had to solve impossible problems with limited resources my entire life. I think like someone who talks to machines because sometimes they're kinder than people. I think like someone who sees patterns in everything, in a code, in music, in the way rain falls against windows. That's beautiful, William said, meaning it completely. That's survival, Lisa replied. When you're poor, you learn that intelligence isn't about memorizing textbooks. It's about seeing opportunities others miss, making connections others can't make, finding hope where others see only problems. William felt something profound happening in his chest, not just attraction to her beauty, but recognition of a mind that complemented his own perfectly. Where he saw technical challenges, she saw human puzzles. Where he built systems, she created empathy. Where he conquered problems through force, she solved them through intuition. Have dinner with me, he said suddenly, not to discuss business, but because I want to know everything about how that extraordinary mind of yours works. Lisa studied his face for a long moment. One dinner, she said finally. But somewhere we can really talk. Somewhere I can show you how I see the world. Anywhere you want. There's a 24-hour diner where I go to think. Nothing fancy, but the coffee's strong, and the atmosphere is perfect for real conversation. I do some of my best problem-solving there. At 2 a.m., William smiled. Perfect. I want to see where genius happens. As they walked toward the diner together, William realized something extraordinary was unfolding. He wasn't just attracted to Lisa's beauty, he was captivated by her mind, fascinated by her perspective, drawn to intelligence that operated on levels his 50 experts couldn't even comprehend. The poor delivery girl, who'd solved what 50 engineers couldn't, was about to show him that brilliance came in forms he'd never imagined, and love could be found in the most unexpected places. More importantly, he was beginning to understand that while 50 brilliant minds had failed because they approached the problem with pure logic, Lisa had succeeded because she'd approached it with her heart, and that made all the difference in the world. Chapter 3. When Brilliance Meets Soul. The 24-hour diner was everything William's world wasn't: worn vinyl booths, flickering fluorescent lights, and the comforting smell of coffee that had been brewing since forever. But as he watched Lisa settle into her favorite corner booth, her eyes lighting up with quiet joy at being in her sanctuary, he realized he'd never seen anything more beautiful. "This is where I come when the world gets too heavy," Lisa said softly, wrapping her hands around a chipped coffee mug like it was precious. "Away from the chaos of working 3 jobs, away from the pressure of just surviving. Just me. Terrible. Coffee, and a place where I can dream." William slid into the booth across from her, mesmerized by the way she seemed to glow in the dim light. "What do you dream about?" Lisa's cheeks flushed pink. "Changing the world, I suppose. Making things better for people like my grandmother, like the patients at the medical center where I work nights, using my mind to help instead of just getting by." "Tell me about your grandmother," William said gently, sensing the love and pain in her voice. Lisa's expression softened with pure tenderness. "Eleanor, she raised me after my parents died when I was 8. She worked herself to the bone to give me opportunities she never had. Piano lessons, books, a computer when I was 12. Her voice caught slightly. "She always said I had a gift, that my mind worked differently than other people's. She called me her little genius." "She was right," William said quietly, watching tears gather in Lisa's eyes. "Now she has dementia," Lisa whispered. "Some days she doesn't remember who I am, but when she's lucid, she still asks if I'm using my gifts to help people. That's all she ever wanted, for me to make a difference." William's heart ached seeing her pain. "Is that why you work so hard? For her? For her and for everyone like us who gets overlooked because we don't have the right degrees or the right connections?" Lisa's voice grew stronger, more passionate. "Your 50 engineers are brilliant, but they've never had to choose between buying food and buying textbooks. They've never had to learn advanced mathematics on a phone screen during breaks between jobs. They think differently because they've lived differently." William reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "The contact sent electricity through both of them, and that's why you see solutions they can't see." "Maybe," Lisa said, her breath catching at his touch. "I think about problems the way I think about people, with my heart as much as my head. Your engineers were trying to make machines think logically. I was trying to make them think lovingly." The word hung between them, charged with meaning. William felt something profound shifting in his chest, recognizing that Lisa's brilliance wasn't just intellectual, it was emotional, spiritual, deeply human. "Lisa," he said softly, his thumb tracing circles on her hand, "you're not just brilliant. You're extraordinary in ways that have nothing to do with solving problems and everything to do with having the most beautiful soul I've ever encountered." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "You don't know me well enough to say that. I know you work 3 jobs to care for someone who might not even remember your name. I know you spend your free time trying to help people you've never met. I know you see beauty and possibility where others see only obstacles." William's voice grew rough with emotion. "I know that in 5 minutes you showed more wisdom than 50 experts managed in 2 years. William, I know that when you walked into my life, soaking wet and brilliant and completely unaware of your own worth, you didn't just solve my problem. You made me realize I'd been looking for answers in all the wrong places." Lisa pulled, her hand free but gently, almost reluctantly. "We come from different worlds, do we?" William asked. "Because sitting here with you, I don't feel like a billionaire CEO. I feel like a man who's spent his whole life being intellectually challenged but emotionally starved, finally meeting someone who feeds both his mind and his soul." Lisa stared, At him, her green eyes wide with wonder and fear. "You barely know me." "Then let me know you," William said urgently. "Tell me everything. Your dreams, your fears, what makes you laugh, what breaks your heart. Tell me who Lisa Jester really is, beneath all that incredible brilliance." For a long moment, Lisa was quiet, studying his face, as if trying to solve the most complex equation of her life. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm someone who talks to the moon when I can't sleep, telling it about all the problems I want to solve and all the people I want to help. I'm someone who cries when I see homeless people because I remember what it felt like to be hungry. I'm someone who reads poetry between coding sessions because I believe beauty and logic can coexist." William's heart swelled with tenderness. "What else?" "I'm someone who's terrified of wanting things I can't have," Lisa continued, her voice growing stronger. "Someone who's learned that being smart isn't enough if you don't have the right opportunities. Someone who dreams of a world where brilliance matters more than bank accounts. You're also someone who's brave enough to trust a stranger with coffee and wisdom," William said softly. "Someone who's kind enough to help even when you have nothing to gain. Someone who's strong enough to work 3 jobs and still find energy to care for others." Lisa's eyes filled with tears again. "Why are you saying these things to me?" "Because I need you to understand something," William said, his voice intense with emotion. "Your 50 engineers failed not because they weren't smart enough, but because they weren't human enough. They approached the problem with their heads. You approached it with your heart. That's not just intelligence, Lisa. That's wisdom." "I'm scared," Lisa whispered. "Of what?" "Of believing that someone like you could see something valuable in someone like me. Of hoping that maybe, just maybe, I'm not just a poor girl who got lucky with a good guess." William stood up and moved to her side of the booth, close enough to see the gold flecks in her green eyes, close enough to catch her scent of vanilla and rain and something uniquely her. "Lisa Jester," he said firmly, "you are not a lucky guess. You are a once-in-a-lifetime mind wrapped in a once-in-a-lifetime soul. You are brilliance and beauty and kindness all wrapped up in one extraordinary person. William, you are someone who deserves to have her dreams come true, her gifts recognized, her heart treasured." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And if you'll let me, I'd like to be the one who helps make all of that happen." Lisa looked up at him with eyes full of wonder and dawning hope. "What are you asking me?" "I'm asking you to take a chance on us, on the possibility that 2 people from different worlds might be perfect for each other, on the idea that sometimes the best solutions come from the most unexpected places." For a heartbeat, they sat in perfect stillness, the entire future balanced between them. Then Lisa smiled, really smiled, for the first time since he'd met her. "One chance," she whispered. "But if we're doing this, we're doing it right. No more hiding who I am or where I come from. No more pretending I'm something I'm not. I don't want you to be anything but exactly who you are," William said, his heart racing. "The brilliant, beautiful, extraordinary woman who solved what 50 experts couldn't, and who's about to change my life in ways I can't even imagine." As they sat together in that worn diner booth, hands intertwined across the scarred table, William realized that finding Lisa wasn't just about solving his technical problem, it was about finding the missing piece of his own soul. More than that, he was beginning to understand that while his 50 engineers had failed because they'd approached artificial intelligence as a technical challenge, Lisa had succeeded because she'd understood it as a fundamentally human one. She hadn't just made his machines smarter, she'd made them more capable of love, and sitting there with her, feeling more alive than he had in years, William realized that was exactly what she'd done for him, too. Chapter 4. The night everything changed. 2 weeks had passed since that magical evening in the diner, and William found himself completely transformed by Lisa's presence in his life. She'd accepted his job offer, but insisted on transitioning slowly, working part-time while finishing her current commitments, refusing to abandon the medical center patients who'd come to depend on her gentle care during their darkest hours. Her compassion for others only made William fall deeper in love with her extraordinary heart. Every conversation revealed new layers of her brilliance. Lisa didn't just solve problems, she understood them on a level that transcended mere intelligence. When she explained how she'd revolutionized his AI system, it wasn't with technical jargon, but with poetry about teaching machines to feel. When she talked about her research, her eyes lit up with passion for helping people, not advancing her own career. Tonight, William had planned something special. Not the expensive restaurant or exclusive event that his world would expect, but something that would matter to Lisa. A private dinner in his penthouse where they could truly be alone, away from curious eyes and whispered judgments about the billionaire and the delivery girl. He'd spent the afternoon cooking himself, dismissing his usual catering service. Lisa deserved something personal, something that came from his heart rather than his wallet. "You cooked?" Lisa said softly as she entered his dining room, her voice filled with wonder. She looked breathtakingly beautiful in a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, her hair falling in soft waves around her shoulders. But it was the way she looked at him, with trust and growing affection, that made William's heart race. "I wanted tonight to be about us," William replied, pulling out her chair with tender care. "Not about impressing you with money or status, but about showing you who I really am when all the business facades fall away." Lisa's eyes sparkled with tears of happiness. "No one has ever cooked for me before. My grandmother used to, but since her illness." She trailed off, touching his hand gently. "This means everything to me, William." As they ate, their conversation flowed like fine wine, deep, intoxicating, revealing. William found himself sharing things he'd never told another, living soul, drawn out by Lisa's incredible ability to listen with her whole heart. "Tell me about your childhood," Lisa said, her fingers intertwining with his across the table. "Not the sanitized version you probably tell reporters, but the real story. I want to know what shaped the man I'm falling in love with." The casual admission of her growing feelings made William's chest tight with emotion. "Lonely," he said quietly, his voice rough with old pain. 14 different foster homes, never staying anywhere long enough to feel like I belonged. I learned that depending on others meant inevitable disappointment, so I built walls to protect myself." "That's why you work so hard," Lisa said with the intuitive understanding that always amazed him. "Why you need to be in control of everything. You're still that little boy, trying to make sure you're never powerless again." William nodded, surprised by how clearly she saw him. "I thought I had it all figured out. Success, wealth, respect. I thought that was enough, until I met you." "What changed?" Lisa asked softly. "Everything." William turned his hand over, intertwining their fingers. "With you, I don't feel like I have to be the CEO or the billionaire or the success story. I feel like I can just be William, the real me underneath all the armor." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. "I've never had anyone make me feel safe enough to be vulnerable either." "What do you mean?" "Growing up poor, bouncing between relatives who saw me as a burden, I learned that showing weakness meant getting hurt. So I became the strong one, the smart one, the one who could handle anything life threw at me." Her voice grew soft, vulnerable. "But with you, I feel like maybe I don't have to be strong all the time. Maybe I can let someone else take care of me for once." The trust in her voice nearly undid him. William stood and moved to her side of the table, kneeling beside her chair so they were at eye level. "Lisa, You are the strongest person I've ever met. Your strength isn't just in your brilliant mind, it's in your incredible heart, your compassion, your ability to see beauty in a world that's often tried to break you. Lisa's breath caught as he cupped her face gently, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones with reverent care. But you're also the most beautiful soul I've ever encountered. You don't have to carry the world alone anymore. Let me help carry it with you. William, I'm scared, she whispered, her voice trembling. Of what, my love? Of how much I'm starting to feel for you. Of how right this feels when logic says it should be impossible. I'm terrified of wanting something this beautiful because I've learned that beautiful things don't last for girls like me. William's heart broke and soared simultaneously. I'm scared too, he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. I've never felt anything like this before. Never wanted to share my whole life with someone. Never felt like I was only half alive when they weren't beside me. Is it crazy? Lisa asked, her hands coming up to cover his. Maybe, William said, his lips curving in a tender smile. But Lisa, being scared together is better than being safe apart, and I'd rather have one day of this incredible love than a lifetime of empty safety. Instead of answering with words, Lisa leaned forward and kissed him, soft and sweet at first, then with growing passion, as 2 years of loneliness and isolation melted away in the warmth of newfound love. William kissed her back, with every emotion he couldn't express, pouring his heart into the connection between them. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, their faces flushed with desire and overwhelming tenderness. I love you, William whispered against her lips, the words coming from the deepest part of his soul. I know it's crazy, I know it's fast, but Lisa, I love you with everything I am. You've not just solved my technical problems, you've solved the puzzle of my heart. Lisa's eyes filled with tears of pure joy. I love you too, she whispered back, her voice breaking with emotion. I've been fighting it because it terrifies me. But William, I love you so much it takes my breath away. You make me believe in possibilities I never dared to dream. They moved to his bedroom as if in a dream, hands intertwined, hearts racing. With anticipation and profound tenderness, the moonlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows painted everything in silver and shadow, creating a sanctuary for their love. William undressed her slowly, reverently, his hands trembling with the magnitude of what they were sharing. Every kiss was a promise, every touch a declaration of devotion. Lisa responded with equal tenderness and growing passion, her own hands exploring the planes of his chest, marveling at the way he shuddered under her gentle caresses. When they finally came together, it was with an intimacy that transcended the physical. It was the joining of two souls who had found their perfect match, two hearts that had been searching their entire lives for this moment of completion. William made love to her with a reverence that brought tears to both their eyes, worshipping every inch of her beautiful body while whispering endearments that made her sob with joy. Lisa gave herself to him completely, holding nothing back, her love and trust absolute and breathtaking. You're so beautiful, William murmured against her skin, his voice rough with emotion. So perfect, so mine. Yours, Lisa agreed breathlessly, arching beneath him. Always yours, William, forever. Afterward, they lay entwined in the darkness, Lisa's head on William's chest, his fingers stroking through her silky hair while their hearts gradually returned to normal rhythm. I never believed in fairy tales, Lisa whispered into the peaceful darkness. I thought they were stories for people who didn't know how hard life really was. But this feels like magic, like the universe conspired to bring us together. You are magic, William replied, pressing a lingering kiss to the top of her head. You walked into my life during the worst storm I'd ever faced and became my sunshine. You didn't just solve what 50 brilliant minds couldn't. You solved the mystery of how to make me feel truly alive. Lisa lifted her head to look at him, her eyes luminous in the moonlight. What happens now? Now we build something beautiful together, William said, his voice sure and strong. Now we prove that love can bridge any gap, overcome any obstacle, create miracles that logic says are impossible. Even when 50 experts said it couldn't be done, Lisa teased gently. William laughed, the sound rich with joy and love. Especially then. After all, you've already proven that the most beautiful solutions come from the heart, not the head. As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, both knew that nothing would ever be the same. They had crossed a threshold together, moving from two separate, lonely people to something new and beautiful and unbreakable. A love that would change not just their lives, but their very understanding of what it meant to be complete. And somewhere, in his dreams, William smiled, knowing that while 50 brilliant engineers had failed to create artificial intelligence that could truly understand human emotion, Lisa had succeeded in creating something even more miraculous. A love that was entirely, beautifully, perfectly real. Chapter 5. Love's Sweet Torture. William woke to find Lisa already dressed, sitting by the window, watching the sunrise paint Seattle in shades of gold and rose. Even in the morning light she was ethereal, but there was something troubled in her expression that made his heart unclench with sudden fear. "Good morning, my beautiful love," he said softly, reaching for her from the warmth of their bed. Lisa turned with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good morning. I should probably go soon. I have to check on my grandmother before my shift at the medical center." Something in her tone made William sit up, instantly alert. After the incredible night they'd shared, the way they'd opened their hearts and souls to each other, he'd expected to wake up to joy, not this careful distance he heard creeping into her voice. "Lisa, what's wrong?" he asked gently, patting the bed beside him. "Come back to me, please." She hesitated for a moment, then moved to sit on the edge of the bed, but there was a new tension in her posture that hadn't been there the night before. "Nothing's wrong, exactly. I need to think." William's chest tightened with a familiar fear, the terror of abandonment that had haunted him since childhood. "Think about what? About us? About what last night means?" Lisa's voice was soft but troubled. "William, what we shared was incredible, but in the light of day, I can't help wondering if we're moving too fast, feeling too much too soon." "Is that such a bad thing?" William asked, reaching out to touch her hand. "Lisa, I've never felt anything like what I feel for you. Last night wasn't just physical, it was like finding the missing piece of my soul." Lisa's eyes filled with tears, and she gently pulled her hand away. "That's exactly what scares me. These feelings are so intense, so overwhelming. I look at you, and I can barely breathe from wanting you. I think about losing you, and I feel like I'm drowning." William moved closer, aching to comfort her but sensing she needed space to work through her fears. "Why does loving me frighten you so much?" "Because I've never had anything this beautiful in my life," Lisa whispered, her voice breaking. "I'm 25 years old, and I've spent every day fighting just to survive, working 3 jobs, caring for my grandmother, trying to scrape together enough money for basic necessities. Beautiful things don't happen to girls like me, William. They just don't." "But it did happen," William said urgently. "We happened. What we feel for each other is real, Lisa. The most real thing I've ever experienced." Lisa stood up abruptly and moved back to the window, wrapping her arms around herself like armor. "Is it? Or is this just some fantasy we've created because we're both lonely? You with all your success, but no one to share it with. Me so tired of struggling alone that I've convinced myself a fairy tale could be real." The words hit William like physical blows. "You think what we shared last night was just loneliness? That the way you trembled in my arms, the way you whispered, My name like a prayer. You think that was just desperation? I don't know what to think. Lisa's voice cracked with emotion. All I know is that 24 hours ago, you were a stranger who happened to need my help. Now you're saying you love me? I'm saying I love you back, and it feels like I'm standing on the edge of a cliff with no idea if there's solid ground or empty air beneath me. William got up and moved toward her, but stopped when she took a step back. The rejection stung, but he could see the genuine terror in her eyes, not of him, but of hoping for something that felt too good to be true. Lisa, look at me, he said softly. Really look at me. Do you see a man who's playing games with your heart? Do you see someone who would take your vulnerability and use it against you? She turned to face him, tears streaming down her cheeks. No, she whispered. I see someone incredible who makes me want things I've never dared to want, and that terrifies me more than anything. Why? Because wanting leads to hoping, and hoping leads to heartbreak when reality crashes in. Lisa's voice grew stronger, fueled by years of protecting herself from disappointment. You live in a penthouse that costs more than most people make in a lifetime. I live in a studio apartment where I can hear my neighbors' conversations through paper-thin walls. You command respect from 50 brilliant engineers. I deliver food to make ends meet. How can this possibly work in the real world? William felt something crack inside his chest. So you're giving up on us before we even have a chance to find out? I'm being realistic, Lisa said, but her voice lacked conviction. I'm protecting both of us from inevitable heartbreak. By breaking both our hearts right now instead? William's voice rose with desperation. Lisa, I don't care about the differences in our circumstances. I care about the way you make me laugh, the way your mind works, the way you see beauty and possibility everywhere you look. I care about the fact that you solved what 50 experts couldn't, not because you're smarter than them, but because you think with your heart as well as your head. And I care about you too, Lisa sobbed. More than I ever thought possible. But caring isn't always enough, William. Sometimes love isn't enough. The words hung between them like a blade. William felt the familiar walls starting to build around his heart, the protective mechanisms that had kept him safe through 14 foster homes, through years of learning not to trust, not to hope, not to need anyone too much. But then he looked at Lisa, really looked at her, and saw past her words to the truth underneath. She wasn't rejecting him. She was terrified of how much she needed him. She wasn't running from love. She was running from the fear of losing it. You're scared, he said quietly, understanding flooding through him. Not of me, not of us, but of believing this could be real, and then having it taken away. Lisa's composure crumbled completely. Yes, she whispered. I'm scared that I'll let myself believe in this fairy tale, and then one day you'll wake up and realize you could have anyone, someone educated, sophisticated, someone who fits into your world, someone better than a girl who cleans hospital rooms and delivers food. William crossed the space between them in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms despite her resistance. Lisa Jester, he said fiercely, you are not just someone better. You are the best person I have ever known. You are brilliant beyond measure, beautiful beyond words, and kind beyond anything I deserve. William, no. Listen to me, he continued, his voice rough with emotion. You think I could find someone better? There is no one better. There is no one else who could walk into my life and solve impossible problems with pure intuition. No one else who could make me want to be a better man just by existing. No one else who could make me feel like home is a person instead of a place. Lisa was crying harder now, her defenses crumbling under the weight of his words. What if you're wrong? What if this feeling fades? What if it doesn't? William interrupted gently. What if this is exactly what it feels like, the most real, most beautiful thing either of us has ever experienced? What if we're not crazy for falling this hard, this fast, but incredibly lucky to have found each other? He cupped her face in, his hands, thumbs brushing away her tears. Lisa, I can't promise we won't face challenges. I can't promise that loving each other will be easy. But I can promise that whatever we face, we'll face it together. I can promise that you will never have to fight alone again. Lisa looked up at him with eyes full of desperate hope and lingering fear. I'm so scared of wanting this, she whispered. Then be scared with me, William said softly. Be scared and brave and hopeful and terrified all at once. But don't run away from the most beautiful thing that's ever happened to either of us. For a long moment, they stood frozen in that space between fear and faith, between safety and surrender. Then Lisa rose on her tiptoes and kissed him with desperate passion, pouring all her love and terror and hope into the connection between them. I love you, she whispered against his lips. I love you so much it terrifies me, but I can't seem to stop. Don't stop, William whispered back. Never stop. Let's be terrified together and see if love really can conquer everything else. As they held each other in his bedroom, surrounded by the morning light and the promise of a future neither of them had dared to dream of. William realized that Lisa was right about one thing. This was terrifying, but it was also the most beautiful terror he'd ever experienced. And for the first time in his life, he understood that the best things in life weren't the ones that came easily, but the ones that were worth fighting for, worth being afraid for, worth risking everything for. Lisa was worth all of that and more, and together they would face whatever came next, scared perhaps, but never alone. Chapter 6. When Hearts Break. 3 weeks after their emotional reconciliation, William and Lisa had settled into a rhythm that felt like pure happiness. She'd fully transitioned to working at his company, bringing revolutionary insights that left even the most skeptical board members in awe. During the day, they were professional colleagues who respected each other's brilliance. At night, they were lovers who couldn't get enough of each other's touch. Lisa had moved Eleanor to Seattle's finest care facility, where specialists tended to her with unprecedented success. The reduced stress had actually improved Eleanor's lucid moments. For the first time in her life, Lisa wasn't drowning under impossible burdens, and her natural radiance had blossomed like a flower finally given proper sunlight, which was exactly why William should have seen the storm gathering on the horizon. He was reviewing quarterly reports in his office when Margaret knocked. Her expression carefully neutral, but tense. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. Isabel Whitmore." William's blood turned to ice. Isabel, his ex-fiancée from 3 years ago. A calculated relationship that had been more merger than marriage. Beautiful, sophisticated. From one of Seattle's most powerful families, she represented everything his former self had mistakenly thought he wanted. "Tell her I'm unavailable," William said without looking up. "She says it's urgent." About the Henderson acquisition. William's jaw tightened. The Henderson deal was worth $800 million, not something he could ignore. 5 minutes, then escort her out. Isabel swept into his office like she owned it, her designer ensemble and perfect makeup a stark contrast to Lisa's natural warmth. She was objectively stunning, tall, blonde, polished to perfection, but looking at her now felt like staring at a beautiful but empty shell. William. Her smile was calculated precision. "You look wonderful. Success and love clearly agree with you, Isabel." William remained seated, making no move toward courtesy. "What's the Henderson situation?" "Always business first. I've missed that about you." She perched on his desk's edge, uninvited. "My family's consortium is backing Henderson. Daddy sent me to discuss terms." For 10 minutes, Isabel outlined proposals with razor-sharp intelligence. She was brilliant in her way, cold, strategic, ruthlessly effective. But as she spoke, William found himself thinking of Lisa's warm laugh, her passionate discussions about helping people, the way her eyes lit up when solving problems not for profit, but for purpose. "So," Isabel concluded, "do we have an understanding?" "I'll review the proposal," William said, reaching for his phone. "Wait." Her voice dropped to intimate registers as she moved closer. "I was hoping we could discuss more than business." William felt warning bells. "There's nothing personal to discuss." "Isn't there?" Her laugh tinkled like breaking crystal. "I've heard fascinating rumors about your charitable work lately. My personal life doesn't concern you." "The delivery." "Girl, William, really?" Her tone dripped condescension. "I understand the appeal of a rescue fantasy, but surely you're not serious about her." William stood so abruptly his chair hit the wall. "Choose your next words very carefully. Darling, I'm not judging your little social experiment. We all need diversions." She stood too, circling like a predator. "But let's be realistic. You and I understand each other. Same background, same values, same world. This infatuation with your charity case will burn out, and when it does, I'll be here." "Get out," William said, his voice deadly quiet. "Don't be dramatic. I'm offering you dignity, a graceful exit from this embarrassing situation." She reached toward his face. "You think you love her? You don't know what love is. When she realizes what you really are, how demanding, how controlling, how impossible to please, she'll leave. They always do." "Security." William pressed his intercom. Isabel's mask slipped, revealing calculating cruelty beneath. "This isn't over. When your little princess gets tired of playing dress-up in our world, when she realizes she'll never truly belong, remember I tried to save you from this humiliation." Security escorted her out, but her poison had already done its work. William stood alone, her words echoing, "When she realizes what you really are, they always do." That evening, William arrived home to find Lisa cooking dinner, humming softly. As she moved around his kitchen, she looked radiant in simple jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back casually, completely at home in his space. When she saw him, her face lit up with joy. "Perfect timing," she said, rising to kiss him. "I'm making that pasta you love." William kissed her back, but distantly, Isabel's words poisoning his thoughts. Lisa pulled back, studying his face with concern. "What's wrong? You look troubled." "Nothing. Just work stress," he lied. Throughout dinner, William found himself watching Lisa with new eyes, Isabel's venom coloring his perceptions. When Lisa mentioned feeling grateful for Eleanor's improved care, William wondered if gratitude was all she felt. When she talked about their work together, he questioned whether her admiration was professional or personal. "William?" Lisa's voice cut through his spiraling thoughts. "You've barely spoken all evening. What's really going on?" "I'm fine." "No, you're not. Talk to me." Her eyes were full of genuine concern and love. But Isabel's words had planted seeds of doubt that were growing like cancer. William looked at her, really looked, taking in her simple clothes, her earnest expression, her obvious care for him. This was the woman who'd solved what 50 experts couldn't, who'd opened her heart to him completely, who loved him with fierce devotion. But doubt, once planted, grew relentlessly. Over the next few days, William found himself pulling back emotionally, analyzing every interaction for hidden meanings. When Lisa laughed at his jokes, was it genuine or polite? When she curled against him at night, was it love or security? When she said she loved him, did she mean it, or was she protecting her comfortable new life? Lisa noticed immediately. "You're different," she said one evening as they worked late. "Distant. Have I done something wrong?" "Of course not," William replied, but couldn't meet her eyes. "Then what is it?" We were so happy, and now you look at me like you're waiting for me to disappoint you." William's heart clenched at the hurt in her voice, but Isabel's poison had infected him completely. "Maybe we're moving too fast. Maybe we need to be more realistic about this situation." Lisa went very still. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we should slow down, figure out what this really is between us." "Realistic?" Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. "What does that mean?" William stood and walked to the window, unable to bear the wounded look in her eyes. "It means we come from different worlds, Lisa. Maybe it's time we acknowledged that these differences matter." The silence behind him was deafening. When he finally turned around, Lisa was gathering her things with mechanical precision, her face pale but composed. "I see," she said quietly. "Well, thank you for being honest about your true feelings." Lisa, "No, you're absolutely right. I got carried away, started believing in fairy tales." She shouldered her bag and headed for the door. "I'll have my resignation letter on your desk in the morning." "You don't have to quit." Lisa paused at the door, not turning around. "Yes, I do. Because I can't work with someone who thinks loving me was a mistake he needs to be realistic about." She was gone before William could respond, leaving him alone with the taste of ashes in his mouth and the growing realization that he'd just destroyed the most beautiful thing that had ever happened to him. But by then, it was too late. The damage was done, and Lisa was walking out of his life, taking his heart with her and leaving him to face the devastating truth. He'd let fear and poisonous words destroy the only real love he'd ever known. As the door closed behind her, William sank into his chair, Isabel's cruel laughter echoing in his memory, and realized he'd just proven her right in the worst possible way. Not because Lisa wasn't good enough for him, but because he wasn't strong enough to fight for their love. The woman who had solved what 50 brilliant engineers couldn't was walking away from him, and this time, William had no one to blame but himself. He'd had everything, the most extraordinary woman in the world, who loved him completely, and he'd thrown it all away because he'd let someone else's poison convince him that happiness was too good to be true. Now he was alone again, surrounded by all his success and wealth, but emptier than he'd ever been in his life. Because what good was having everything if you didn't have the one person who made it all worthwhile? Chapter 7. Love's Desperate Chase. 2 weeks, 14 days, 336 hours since Lisa had walked out of William's life, and every single minute felt like an eternity of pure agony. William sat in his penthouse office, staring at the resignation letter she'd left on his desk, 2 sentences of professional courtesy that had shattered his world more completely than any business failure ever could. The projects they'd built together continued to revolutionize the industry, earning acclaim from around the globe. His company's success had reached unprecedented heights. He should have been celebrating the triumph of his career. Instead, he was dying inside, piece by piece. "Sir," Margaret's voice carried deep concern that had become her default tone. "The Business Week reporter is here for your interview about the breakthrough innovations." "Cancel it," William said without looking up from Lisa's letter, which he'd read so many times the paper was wearing thin. "Sir, this is the 4th interview you've cancelled this week. People are starting to ask questions about your availability." "Let them ask." William finally looked up, and Margaret flinched at what she saw in his eyes. A man who'd lost everything that mattered. "I don't care about interviews or recognition or any of it." Margaret closed the door and approached his desk with the careful manner of someone dealing with a wounded animal. "This is about Ms. Jester, isn't it?" William's laugh was bitter, broken. "She was the heart of everything we accomplished, Margaret. The genius behind every breakthrough that's making everyone call me a visionary. And I threw her away like she meant nothing. Then go find her, sir." "I've tried." William gestured to the stack of reports from 3 different private investigation firms. She's vanished completely. No forwarding address, no contact information, no trace of where she might have gone. It's like she never existed. People don't just disappear, Mr. Alcivar. Maybe you're not looking in the right places. That afternoon, William began his own desperate search, starting with the coffee shop where he'd first learned the sound of Lisa's laugh. The barista remembered her. The brilliant girl with the laptop, always working on something important. But hadn't seen her in weeks. The medical center where she'd worked night shifts had no forwarding information, claimed no knowledge of her whereabouts. William walked Seattle's streets like a man possessed, visiting every place they'd shared memories. The hospital where he'd first realized he loved her. The diner where they'd talked until dawn, about dreams and fears and possibilities. The bookstore where she'd bought programming manuals and he'd bought her poetry collections she'd treasured. Like gold. Nothing. It was as if Lisa Jester had been erased from existence. On the third week of his search, William found himself outside Eleanor's care facility, hoping desperately that Lisa would visit her grandmother. The head nurse, Sarah, recognized him immediately, but shook her head sadly. "I'm sorry, Mr. Alcivar, but Lisa asked us not to tell anyone when she visits. She comes very early in the morning or very late at night, trying to avoid—" She trailed off diplomatically. "How is Eleanor?" Sarah's expression grew tender. "Some days are better than others, but she asks for Lisa constantly, even when she can't remember her name. Love transcends memory, I think. That girl has sacrificed everything for her grandmother's happiness." William's chest tightened with familiar ache. "Could you give Lisa a message from me?" "I could try, but she made it very clear she doesn't want any contact with you. She seems very hurt, Mr. Alcivar. What did you do to that sweet girl?" "I broke her heart," William said simply, "and mine in the process." That night, William positioned himself in the care facility's parking lot, waiting in the rain like a lovesick teenager. At 2 a.m., a familiar figure emerged from the shadows. Lisa, walking with her head down, shoulders carrying the weight of the world again. Even from a distance, William could see she'd lost weight, that the vibrant glow he'd fallen in love with had dimmed to barely flickering embers. He followed her car at a distance, his heart hammering when she pulled into the parking lot of a small tech startup downtown. Through the windows, William could see her at a computer, coding with the same passionate intensity he remembered, but there was no joy in her posture now, only grim determination. The next morning, William learned everything about Technova Solutions, a TEC, small company specializing in AI applications for healthcare. Lisa had been hired as their lead developer 3 weeks ago and was already transforming their capabilities with innovations that bore her distinctive genius. William's first instinct was to buy the company to manufacture a reason to see her. But every fiber of his being rejected the idea. He'd already used his wealth and power to manipulate their relationship once. He wouldn't make that mistake again. Instead, he waited. Every night, he parked across from Technova and watched Lisa work until dawn, her silhouette bent over code that probably contained solutions to problems he could only dream of solving. He learned her new schedule, her habits, the coffee shop where she grabbed caffeine at 3 a.m. to fuel her sleepless nights. Finally, after a week of watching her like a desperate stalker, William worked up the courage to approach. He found her at the 24-hour diner where they'd first shared their souls, sitting alone at their corner booth with her laptop and a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. She looked up when his shadow fell across her table, and the flash of pain in her eyes nearly brought him to his knees. "William." Her voice was carefully neutral, professionally polite. "What are you doing here?" "I've been looking for you for 3 weeks, he said honestly. "Well, you found me. Congratulations." Lisa closed her laptop with deliberate calm. "I should go. It's late. Please." William slid into the booth before she could escape. Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Lisa's hands clenched into fists on the table. What could you possibly have to say that's worth saying now? That I was wrong. That I was scared and stupid and let someone else's poison infect the most beautiful thing in my life. William leaned forward, his voice raw with desperation. I've been dying without you, Lisa. Literally dying. Someone else's poison. Lisa's eyes flashed with the first real emotion he'd seen. What are you talking about? William told her about Isabel's visit, about the doubts that had been planted in his mind, about the way fear had made him question everything beautiful in his world. As he spoke, he watched Lisa's expression shift from anger to understanding, to something that might have been pity. So you let your ex-fiancé convince you that I was using you, Lisa said when he finished, that our love wasn't real. I let my own insecurities convince me, William corrected desperately. Isabel just provided the excuse I was looking for to run away before you could leave me first. Lisa was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she finally looked up, tears were streaming down her face. Do you have any idea what these weeks have been like for me? She whispered. Wondering what I did wrong, what I said that made you decide I wasn't worth loving anymore? You did nothing wrong. William reached across the table, but Lisa pulled her hands away. Lisa, you're the most perfect thing that's ever happened to me. I'm the one who... Stop! Lisa held up a hand, her voice breaking. Just stop. You don't get to do this. You don't get to destroy me and then waltz back in here with pretty words and expect everything to be fine. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. You're right, you don't. Lisa stood up, gathering her things with shaking hands. Because when you decided I wasn't good enough for you, when you made me feel like our love was some kind of charity case, you didn't just break my heart, William. You broke my faith in fairy tales. You broke my ability to believe that someone could love me for who I am. Lisa, please. I loved you with everything I had, she continued, tears flowing freely now. I trusted you with parts of myself I'd never shared with anyone. I let you see me vulnerable and scared and desperate, and you used all of that against me the moment someone more sophisticated showed up. Isabel means nothing to me, but I meant nothing to you either when it mattered. Lisa's voice grew stronger, even as tears continued to fall. Goodbye, William. I hope you find what you're really looking for. She walked toward the door, and William felt his entire world crumbling around him. This was it, his last chance, his final opportunity to fight for the only woman he'd ever truly loved. I fired her, he called out desperately. Isabel. I terminated her family's contract and told her father exactly what I thought of his manipulative daughter. Lisa paused at the door, but didn't turn around. I can't eat, William continued, his voice breaking. I can't sleep. I can't work. I can't do anything but think about how I destroyed the most beautiful thing in my life because I was too much of a coward to believe I deserved to be happy. William, I love you, Lisa Jester. Not because you're grateful, not because you need me, not because you fit some image of what I think I should want. He stood up, his hands shaking. I love you because when you walk into a room, the sun comes up. I love you because you see solutions where everyone else sees problems. I love you because you made me feel like home for the first time in my entire life. Lisa turned around slowly, her face streaked with tears. How do I know you won't change your mind again? How do I know that the next time someone questions our relationship, you won't decide I'm not worth fighting for? William crossed the diner, in 3 strides, stopping just inches from her, close enough to see the gold flecks in her green eyes, close enough to catch her scent of vanilla and rain. Because I'll spend every day for the rest of my life proving that you are worth everything, he said fiercely. Because I'll love you so completely, so obviously, so publicly, that no one will ever question whether you have my whole heart. William, Because losing you taught me that being afraid of love is nothing compared to being afraid of living without it. For a heartbeat, they stood frozen, the entire future balanced between them. Then Lisa threw herself into his arms, and William caught her, holding her like she was life itself. "I love you too," she sobbed against his chest. "God help me, I never stopped loving you." William buried his face in her hair, breathing in the scent he'd missed like oxygen. "I'm never letting you go again. Never. I don't care who disapproves or what they say, or whether you fit their definition of suitable. You're mine, and I'm yours, and that's all that matters." They held each other in the middle of the empty diner, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the promise of dawn, and slowly began to rebuild what fear had nearly destroyed. It wouldn't be easy. Trust, once broken, required careful tending to heal. But they had something stronger than fear now. They had love, and love, William finally understood, was worth any risk. Chapter 8. Building Forever. The morning after their emotional reunion, William woke to find Lisa already awake, sitting by the window of his penthouse bedroom, watching the sunrise paint Seattle in shades of gold and rose. She looked ethereal in the early light, wrapped in his shirt, her auburn hair catching the morning rays like fire. For a moment his heart clenched with the familiar fear that this was all a dream. "Good morning, my love," he said softly, not wanting to break the spell of this perfect moment. Lisa turned to him with a smile that was tentative but genuine, hope beginning to bloom in her eyes again. "Good morning. I was just thinking about how different everything looks in the sunlight, how much braver I feel when I can see clearly." She moved to sit on the edge of the bed, her fingers tracing patterns on the silk sheets. "Last night, when you found me, it felt like coming back to life. But now, in the daylight, I need to know we're building something real this time." William's chest tightened slightly. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we can't go back to the way things were before. Too much has happened. We've both been hurt too deeply to pretend we can just pick up where we left off." Lisa's voice grew firmer, more determined. "If we're going to do this, really do this, we need to build something new, something stronger." William took her hands in his, marveling at how perfectly they fit together despite everything they'd been through. "Tell me what you need." "I won't be your secret anymore," Lisa said, her green eyes steady and unwavering. "I won't hide in the shadows while you decide whether I'm good enough for your world. If you love me, you need to love me publicly, proudly, without apology." "Done." William agreed immediately. "What else? I need my independence back. I've worked too hard to build my own career to become just an extension of yours." Lisa's voice carried quiet strength. "I'll work with you, but I won't work for you anymore. We're partners in everything, or we're nothing." "Partners?" William said firmly. "In everything. I want your brilliant mind challenging mine, not following orders. And I need you to trust me. Really trust me." Lisa's voice softened with vulnerability. "That means no more letting other people poison your mind against us. No more running away when things get difficult. I need you to fight for us, William, even when I'm too tired to fight for myself." William lifted her hands to his lips, pressing reverent kisses to her knuckles. "I'll fight the whole world for you if I have to. I'll never let anyone make me doubt us again." Lisa smiled, and for the first time since their reunion, it reached her eyes completely. "Then prove it." The challenge in her voice sent electricity through his veins. "How?" "Take me to the Morrison Foundation Gala next week, the one where all your high society friends will be, including your ex-fiancée and her family." William's breath caught. The Morrison Gala was Seattle's most exclusive social event, attended by politicians, celebrities, and old money families who could trace their lineages back generations. It was also where Isabel would be, along with everyone who'd whispered about his relationship with Lisa. Are you sure you want to face all that? I'm sure. Lisa stood up, her chin lifting with the stubborn pride he'd fallen in love with. I want to meet your world, William. All of it. The good, the bad, and the judgmental. I want them to see that I'm not going anywhere. That evening, William stood at the bottom of his staircase, adjusting his bow tie for the 10th time in 5 minutes. He'd attended hundreds of formal events, but none had ever mattered the way tonight did. This wasn't just about introducing Lisa to his social circle. It was about claiming her publicly, making a statement that would resonate through Seattle's elite circles for years to come. William? Lisa's voice drifted down from the top of the stairs. I'm ready. He looked up and felt his heart stop completely. Lisa descended the staircase like a vision in midnight blue silk that hugged every curve and flowed like water with her movements. Her auburn hair was swept up in an elegant chignon that showcased the graceful line of her neck, and she wore the delicate diamond earrings he'd given her as an early Christmas gift, the only jewelry she needed. She was breathtakingly beautiful, radiating confidence and grace. You're absolutely perfect, William breathed, meeting her at the bottom of the stairs. I'm terrified, Lisa admitted honestly, her hands smoothing the silk of her dress. But I'm ready to stand beside you. William lifted her chin with gentle fingers, looking into her eyes with infinite tenderness. You have nothing to be afraid of. You're brilliant, beautiful, and you're mine. That makes you untouchable. The Morrison Gala was held at the Seattle Art Museum, transformed for the evening into a glittering wonderland of crystal chandeliers, white orchids, and the soft murmur of wealth and influence. As William and Lisa made their entrance, he felt the subtle shift in the room's energy, conversations pausing, heads turning, speculation beginning to ripple through the crowd like waves. They're staring, Lisa murmured, her arm linked confidently. Through his, let them stare, William replied, his voice carrying just enough volume to be overheard by nearby guests. They're looking at the most extraordinary woman in the room. Isabel appeared at their side within minutes, her smile sharp as a blade. She looked immaculate in white silk and emeralds, every inch the society princess she'd been born to be. William, she purred, her calculating eyes fixed on Lisa. How lovely to see you again. And you must be the famous problem solver I've heard so much about. Lisa Jester, Lisa replied with perfect composure, extending her hand with quiet confidence. And you must be the ex-fiancé who tried to interfere with our relationship. Isabel's smile faltered slightly at Lisa's directness. How refreshing. I love your dress. Very bold choice for someone in your position. Thank you. I love your jewelry, Lisa replied sweetly, her voice carrying just the right note of politeness. It tinged with steel. It's so comprehensive. William bit back a smile as Isabel's eyes flashed with irritation. Lisa was holding her own beautifully, meeting condescension with grace and subtle strength. If you'll excuse us, William said, smoothly guiding Lisa away, we should mingle with people worth knowing. They moved through the crowd like royalty, and William introduced Lisa to everyone who mattered, tech innovators, city council members, philanthropists, and influential families who'd shaped Seattle for generations. With each introduction, William's pride in Lisa grew exponentially. She was charming without being obsequious, intelligent without being intimidating, and absolutely fearless in the face of subtle slights and pointed questions. So, Miss Jester, drawled Harrison Morrison, heir to the foundation hosting the gala, William tells us you revolutionized his AI development. How fascinating. What's your background in artificial intelligence? Self-taught primarily, Lisa replied, with quiet confidence that commanded respect. I approach problems from a human perspective rather than a purely technical one. I believe technology should serve humanity, not the other way around. How refreshingly practical. Harrison's wife Patricia chimed in with barely concealed condescension. It must be so rewarding to have such a hands-on approach to learning. It is, Lisa agreed gracefully. There's something deeply satisfying about solving real problems for real people, rather than just publishing papers that other academics will read. The pointed comment hung in the air, and William saw several people exchange appreciative glances. Lisa had just subtly reminded everyone that her innovations had practical applications that improved lives. Brilliantly said, boomed Senator Michael Chen, approaching with his wife. Ms. Jester, I've been following your work with great interest. The applications for healthcare AI could revolutionize how we approach patient care. Lisa's eyes lit up with genuine passion. Senator Chen, thank you. I'd love to discuss the policy implications with you. Technology is advancing faster than our regulatory frameworks can adapt. Absolutely. My office will call you next week. There's tremendous potential for collaboration between the private sector and public policy. As the senator moved on, William noticed the subtle but significant shift in how people looked at Lisa. The initial curiosity and condescension were giving way to genuine interest and respect. She wasn't just William's beautiful companion. She was someone worth knowing in her own right, someone whose mind commanded attention and whose innovations demanded recognition. Later, as the evening wound down, William and Lisa found themselves on the museum's terrace overlooking Elliott Bay. The city sparkled below them like scattered diamonds, but William only had eyes for the woman in his arms. "So," Lisa said, leaning back against his chest with a satisfied smile, "how do you think I did?" "You were magnificent," William murmured into her hair, his voice thick with pride and love. "Absolutely magnificent. Senator Chen wants to work with you. Harrison Morrison asked for your business card, and I'm pretty sure half the room respects you more than they ever respected Isabel." "Good," Lisa said with quiet satisfaction. "I wanted them to see that I belong here, not because of your money or status, but because of who I am." "You more than belong here," William said fiercely. "You elevate every room you enter." Lisa turned in his arms, her eyes sparkling with love and newfound confidence. "Thank you for tonight, William, for letting me stand beside you as an equal, for being proud of me. I'll always be proud of you," William said, his voice rough with emotion. "You're the smartest, bravest, most amazing woman I've ever known. Tonight, you didn't just prove yourself to them. You reminded me why I fell in love with you in the first place." "And why is that?" Lisa asked teasingly. "Because you're extraordinary in every way that matters," William replied, kissing her softly. "Under the Seattle stars. Because you see possibilities where others see problems. Because you make me want to be worthy of your love every single day." As they held each other on that terrace, surrounded by the glittering city and the infinite possibilities of their future together, William knew they were building something unbreakable. Not just a relationship, but a true partnership based on mutual respect, shared dreams and love that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger than ever. It was a foundation that could weather any storm and last forever. Chapter 9. Love's Greatest Test. 6 months after the Morrison Gala, William and Lisa had built something breathtakingly beautiful together. Their personal relationship had deepened into a love so profound it seemed to make the very air around them sparkle with joy. Lisa had started her own consulting firm, revolutionizing AI applications for healthcare while maintaining her partnership with William's company. Their professional collaboration had produced innovations that were changing lives around the world. Systems that helped doctors communicate with dementia patients, applications that assisted therapists in reading emotional cues, and technology that brought genuine empathy to artificial intelligence. Everything was perfect, which was exactly why William should have seen the storm gathering on the horizon. The call came on a Tuesday morning that had started like any other. Lisa laughing over coffee as she told him about Eleanor's improved condition, their hands intertwined. Across the breakfast table, both of them glowing with the contentment of two people deeply in love and perfectly matched. "Mr. Alcivar?" His lawyer James Morrison's voice was tight with urgency. "We have a serious problem. I need you in my office immediately." Within an hour, William sat across from James, his blood running cold as he learned the scope of the attack being mounted against everything he'd built. "It's coordinated and vicious," James explained grimly. "Harrison Whitmore and a consortium of old money families are mounting a hostile takeover attempt. They're targeting your AI patents specifically and spreading rumors about your company's financial stability. But that's not the worst part." William's jaw tightened. "What's the worst part?" "They've hired Blackstone Investigations, the most ruthless private firm in the city, to systematically destroy your personal life. They're planning to make this very public and very ugly, focusing specifically on Lisa." "What kind of attack?" William's voice was deadly quiet. "Character assassination of the most brutal kind. They're constructing a narrative that Lisa is a calculating gold digger who seduced you for access to your wealth and intellectual property. They're digging into every aspect of her past, her childhood in foster care, her grandmother's medical bills, her struggle with poverty. They're taking every beautiful thing about her story and twisting it into evidence of manipulation." The folder James handed him contained preliminary reports that made William's vision blur with rage. Photos of Lisa working her delivery job, taken with telephoto lenses to make her look desperate and calculating. Financial records showing her grandmother's medical expenses presented as evidence of motive. Even her academic achievements were being twisted. Her self-taught programming skills described as self-serving manipulation to gain access to elite circles. They're planning to release this to every major media outlet simultaneously, James continued. The headline will be something like, "Tech Mogul's Mystery Woman, the Calculated Seduction That Fooled 50 Engineers." William's hands shook with rage as he absorbed the full scope of the attack. They weren't just coming after his business. They were trying to destroy the woman he loved, to paint their beautiful love story as a calculated con game. "There's more," James said reluctantly. "They're also planning to target Eleanor. They want to interview her about Lisa's suspicious devotion, trying to get a confused elderly woman to say something that could be interpreted as evidence against Lisa's character." William felt something murderous rise in his chest. "When?" "The story breaks tomorrow morning. The takeover bid goes public simultaneously. They're timing it for maximum damage. When you're distracted by defending Lisa, they'll move on your company. When you're fighting to save your business, they'll intensify the personal attacks." William stood abruptly, his mind racing through possibilities and strategies. "I need to warn Lisa." "William," James said carefully, "there's something else you need to consider. The smart play here might be to distance yourself from Lisa temporarily. Let her weather this storm alone while you focus on saving your company. Once the business is secure, no." William's voice cut through the suggestion like a blade. "Absolutely not. We face this together or not at all." William found Lisa at her office, completely absorbed in coding a new application that would help autistic children communicate more effectively. She looked radiant in the afternoon sunlight streaming through her windows, her mind fully engaged in work that would change lives. The sight of her, brilliant, passionate, utterly unaware of the storm about to break, made his heart clench. With protective fury, "William!" Her face lit up when she saw him, the pure joy in her expression making what he had to tell her even more painful. "Perfect timing. I just made a breakthrough that could help thousands of kids find their voice. Lisa, we need to talk." he said gently, closing her office door behind him. Something in his tone made her expression shift from joy to concern. "What's wrong? You look like someone died." William moved to her chair, kneeling beside it so they were at eye level. "Tomorrow morning, every major news outlet is going to publish a story about us, about you. It's going to be vicious and completely untrue, designed to destroy your reputation and our relationship." Lisa's face went pale. "What kind of story?" As gently as possible, William explained the coordinated attack, watching her face grow whiter with each detail. When he finished, Lisa sat in stunned silence for a long moment. "They're using my grandmother's illness against me," she whispered finally. "They're making my love for you sound like a business transaction." "It's all lies," William said fiercely, taking her hands. "Anyone who knows you would see through it immediately." "But most people don't know me," Lisa said quietly. "They'll see a poor girl who suddenly has access to wealth and success, and they'll believe the worst. Then we fight back. We tell our story, the real story. We show them what our love actually looks like." Lisa was quiet for a long moment, staring at their intertwined hands. When she looked up, there was something resigned in her eyes that terrified him. "William, maybe it would be better if I just stepped back for a while. Let this blow over." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe I should disappear until they lose interest. Go somewhere far away, let you handle your business without having to worry about defending me, too." William felt panic clawing at his chest. "No, absolutely not. Lisa, if you run now, they win. They destroy us without even having to prove their lies. But if I stay, I destroy you," Lisa said, tears starting to fall. "They're using me as a weapon against everything you've built. How can I do that to the man I love? By staying and fighting. With me," William said urgently, "by showing them that our love is stronger than their hate, that truth is more powerful than lies." Lisa stood and moved to her window, wrapping her arms around herself. "Look what loving me has cost you already. Isabel's interference, now this coordinated attack. How many more battles will you have to fight because you chose me?" "As many as it takes," William said without hesitation. "Lisa, I would fight the whole world for you. I would lose everything else before I'd lose you. But what if you don't have to choose?" Lisa turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "What if I just removed myself from the equation?" "Then you'd be removing my heart from my chest," William said, crossing to her. "Lisa, don't you understand? Without you, none of the rest of it matters. My company, my wealth, my reputation, they're all meaningless without you to share them with." "William, no, listen to me." He cupped her face in his hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. 6 months ago, you taught me that the most complex problems sometimes have the simplest solutions. This is simple too, Lisa. We love each other. Everything else is just noise." Lisa searched his face, looking for any hint of doubt or reservation. "You really want to face this storm together?" "I want to face everything together," William said firmly. "The storms and the sunshine, the attacks and the victories, the whole beautiful mess of life. That's what love means, Lisa. It means standing together when standing apart would be easier." For a moment, they stood in perfect stillness, the future balanced on the edge of her decision. Then Lisa smiled, really smiled, for the first time since he delivered the devastating news. "Then let's show them what real love looks like," she said, her voice growing stronger. "Let's prove that some bridges aren't just worth crossing, they're worth defending." As they held each other in her office, surrounded by the late afternoon sunlight and the sound of their hearts beating in sync, William knew that whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. And together they were unbreakable. Next morning, the coordinated attack launched with vicious intensity. Headlines screamed across every major outlet: "Tech mogul's mystery woman, the calculated rise of Lisa Jester." Photos of Lisa in her delivery uniform were plastered everywhere, accompanied by twisted narratives about her suspicious rise from poverty to privilege. But something unexpected happened. Instead of believing the lies the public rallied around their love story, social media exploded with support. Team Lisa began trending worldwide. People who'd grown up poor, who'd worked multiple jobs, who'd fought for their education, recognized themselves in Lisa's story, not as calculated manipulation, but as inspiring determination. "Look at this," Lisa said, showing William her phone as messages of support poured in. "A woman in Detroit says my story inspired her to go back to school. A man in Phoenix says seeing us fight for love gave him courage to propose to his girlfriend, Senator." Chen held a press conference defending Lisa's character. "I've worked with Ms. Jester personally," he declared. "Her innovations aren't the product of manipulation. They're the result of genuine brilliance and compassion. We should be celebrating her achievements, not attacking them." Within 48 hours, the narrative had completely flipped. Investigative journalists exposed Harrison Whitmore's financial irregularities. The private investigation firm faced lawsuits for harassment. Public opinion had turned so decisively in Lisa and William's favor that several board members from the attacking consortium resigned in disgrace. "We did it," Lisa whispered that evening as they watched the sunset from their favorite spot. "We actually did it." "No," William corrected, pulling her close. "You did it. Your strength, your grace, your refusal to be broken by their lies. That's what won. That's what showed the world who you really are." "We won together," Lisa insisted, "just like we always will." William kissed her then, soft and deep and full of infinite love, knowing that they had faced their greatest test and emerged stronger than ever. Nothing could break them now. Nothing could dim the light of what they'd built together. Their love had survived everything the world could throw at it, and now they were ready for forever. Chapter 10. Forever begins tonight. 3 weeks after the media storm hit, William sat in his car outside the same 24-hour diner where their love story had truly begun, rain drumming on the roof like the night they first met. The coordinated attack had failed spectacularly. Instead of destroying their reputation, it had backfired completely. The public had seen through the lies immediately, rallying around their love story with overwhelming support. Harrison Whitmore's consortium had withdrawn their takeover bid after their underhanded tactics were exposed, and several board members faced federal investigation for market manipulation. But none of that mattered right now, because tonight was about something far more important than business victories. Thunder crashed overhead, so familiar it felt like destiny calling. William looked up at the storm with recognition. Another thunderstorm, another night that would change everything. But this time, he wasn't facing uncertainty. He was facing the most important moment of his life. He knew exactly where she would be. The diner was nearly empty at 2 a.m., just a few night shift workers and insomniacs seeking refuge from the storm. And there, in their corner booth where they'd shared so many intimate conversations, sat Lisa working on her laptop with the passionate intensity he'd fallen in love with. She looked up when his shadow fell across her table and her face transformed. With a smile so radiant it could have lit up the entire city. "William," she said softly, closing her laptop, "I was hoping you'd find me here." "This is where our story began," he said, sliding into the booth across from her. "It seems fitting that this is where the next chapter should start, too." "What next chapter?" Lisa asked, though there was something knowing in her eyes, as if she could sense the magnitude of what was coming. William reached across the table, taking her hands in his. "Lisa, these past few weeks, watching you handle every attack with such grace and strength, seeing you refuse to be broken by people who tried to twist our beautiful love into something ugly, it made me realize something." "What?" That you're not just the woman I love, you're the woman I want to spend every day of the rest of my life loving. You're my partner, my best friend, my inspiration, my home. William's voice grew thick with emotion. You're everything I never knew I was looking for, and everything I never want to live without. Lisa's breath caught, her eyes growing wide with wonder and hope. William stood and moved to kneel beside her booth, pulling a small velvet box from his jacket pocket. The entire diner seemed to hold its breath as he opened it to reveal a ring that made Lisa gasp. Not a traditional diamond, but a stunning emerald that matched her eyes perfectly, surrounded by tiny diamonds that caught the fluorescent lights like captured starlight. "Lisa Jester," William said, his voice steady despite the way his hands trembled with the magnitude of the moment. "You walked into my life during the worst storm I'd ever faced, and you became my sunshine. You solved impossible problems with impossible grace, not because you're brilliant, though you are, but because you see with your heart as well as your mind." "William," Lisa whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You loved me when I was broken, forgave me when I was stupid, and stood by me when the world tried to tear us apart. You make me laugh when I want to cry, think when I want to give up, and believe in miracles when logic tells me they're impossible." William's voice broke with pure emotion. "You are my best friend, my greatest love, my perfect partner in everything that matters." The few other customers in the diner had stopped what they were doing, drawn by the raw emotion and beauty of the moment unfolding before them. "Lisa, marry me," William continued, his voice growing stronger. "Not because I'm wealthy or successful, or because it makes sense to anyone else. Marry me because I love you, with every breath in my body, every beat of my heart, every thought in my mind. Marry me because I want to spend the rest of my life proving that some love stories are worth fighting for, worth believing in, worth everything." The emerald ring caught the diner's lights as William held it up, waiting for her answer with his entire future hanging in the balance. Around them, the diner had gone completely silent. Even the cook had emerged from the kitchen to witness this real-life fairy tale. "The ring," Lisa whispered, staring at the emerald through her tears. "It's not a diamond. It's an emerald," William said softly, his voice full of tenderness. "Because diamonds are what everyone expects, but emeralds are rare and precious and perfect, just like you. Because your eyes are the color of hope after despair, of spring after the longest winter, and I want to look into that color every day for the rest of my life." Lisa slipped from her seat to kneel facing him on the diner floor, her hands cupping his face as tears of pure joy streamed down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, her voice breaking with happiness. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes, forever and always, and in every way that matters." William slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, and it fit perfectly, like it had been made for her, like everything about their love had been destined from that first stormy night when she'd stumbled into his life and changed everything. They kissed there on the floor of the 24-hour diner, while thunder crashed outside and the other patrons burst into spontaneous applause and cheers. It was messy and tear-soaked and absolutely perfect, just like their entire love story. "I love you," Lisa whispered against his lips. "I love you so much it frightens and thrills and completes me all at once." "Don't be frightened," William murmured, back holding her like she was the most precious thing in the universe. "Be brave, be mine, be happy, be everything you've always been, but be it with me forever." "Forever," Lisa agreed, laughing through her tears. They held each other on that worn diner floor, surrounded by the smell of coffee and the sound of rain and the cheers of strangers who'd witnessed something magical and made promises that would last a lifetime. 6 months later. The wedding was held on the rooftop garden of Williams' penthouse, with Seattle's skyline glittering like diamonds in the distance and the same view where they'd shared so many intimate moments. It was elegant but intimate, just family and the friends who truly mattered, the people who'd supported their love through every storm. Eleanor sat in the front row, lucid and radiant, tears of joy streaming down her face as she watched her beloved granddaughter marry the man who'd not only won her heart, but helped restore her grandmother's health through the best medical care money could provide. Lisa was absolutely luminous in a simple but elegant white dress that made her look like an angel, her hair crowned with tiny white flowers and the emerald engagement ring sparkling on her finger. William wore a midnight blue tuxedo that brought out his eyes, and when he saw her walking toward him, escorted by the head nurse from Eleanor's facility, he had to grip his best man's arm to keep from falling to his knees with the overwhelming beauty of the moment. "You saved me," he whispered when she reached him, taking her hands in his with infinite tenderness. "We saved each other," Lisa whispered back, her smile brighter than the setting sun. They exchanged vows they'd written themselves, promises about partnership and trust, about facing every storm together and building something beautiful that would last forever. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, William kissed his bride with such reverence and joy that there wasn't a dry eye among their guests. As they danced their first dance to "At Last," under a canopy of stars and twinkling lights, Lisa looked up at her new husband with eyes full of wonder and absolute contentment. "Do you think we'll always be this happy?" she asked. William pulled her closer, spinning her gently in his arms. "I think we'll be happy in ways we can't even imagine yet. I think we'll build something extraordinary together, not just a marriage, but a legacy. Innovations that change the world, children who inherit your kindness and brilliance, love that inspires other people to be brave enough to fight for their own fairy tales." "That sounds absolutely perfect," Lisa said, her heart so full it felt like it might burst with joy. "You are perfect," William replied, kissing her forehead with infinite tenderness. "Perfect for me, perfect for this life we're building together, perfect in every way that matters." As the evening wound down and their guests gradually departed, William and Lisa stood alone on their rooftop, looking out over the city where they'd found each other. The same kind of thunder that had brought them together rumbled softly in the distance, but now it sounded like a blessing instead of a threat. "Thank you," Lisa said softly, her head on his shoulder. "For what, my love?" "For seeing me when I felt invisible, for loving me when I felt unlovable, for fighting for us when I was too scared to believe we could win." She touched her emerald ring, which caught the moonlight like captured magic. "For making me believe that poor delivery girls can have fairy tale endings too." "Thank you," William replied, his arms tightening around her, "for walking into my life during my darkest hour and becoming my light, for solving impossible problems with your brilliant heart, for showing me that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone perfect for you." They kissed under the Seattle stars, surrounded by the life they'd built together and the infinite future stretching ahead of them. It had been an incredible journey from that first night when a soaked delivery girl had stumbled into a broken billionaire's penthouse and proved that 50 engineers had failed because they'd forgotten the most important element of intelligence, the human heart. But every struggle, every tear, every moment of doubt had been worth it to arrive at this perfect moment, married, blissfully happy, and absolutely, completely, forever in love. Some bridges, as it turned out, were never too far to cross when you found the right person to cross them with. And some love stories were so beautiful, so real, so powerful that they proved fairy tales could come true for anyone brave enough to believe in them.